Of course, I would urge all the audience to read the book very carefully. Right, what I gathered this book is, of course, it's an autobiographical account, but at the end of the day, this book is much more than an account, autobiographical account. It's a rare concept of different stages of your entrepreneurial journey, and which can provide a very good template for any youngster, or not only youngster, even the people like us to follow. So I think that's one thing that I thought was could not have happened unless you have taken that much of time to reflect and write a book about it. So, and then therefore, and the book has got tremendous responses already. You can see that everywhere. So, how do you feel about it? That after going through this journey and then seeing the kind of responses that you are getting, what is your feeling?
Of course, Saurabh, I feel good about it. But the intent of writing the book was fairly simple. Reach out to a large audience. I can't reinforce this more over and over again. My intent was really to see that we inspire the next generation to become entrepreneurs. And by reading the story, I have got so many of those mails to me relating to what they want to do thereafter. Makes me feel very happy about it. With the belief that I have why entrepreneurship is so important at this point of time is that I'm sure some of you may be familiar with this. We right now, given the demographic dividend advantage this nation has, we put out every month 1 million people for jobs in the streets of India. Or every year, approximately, we put 10 million people out for jobs. Fast forward for 10 years, we require 100 million jobs. It's fairly well documented all around the world that net new jobs that get created in any economy, whether it's an advanced economy or a developing economy at this point of time, 60% of those jobs get created by startups. Our startups are small, medium enterprises. The large established companies only create 40% of jobs. So when you require this 100 million jobs, the only way that you can create is only through entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship of a large funnel, because we also have to accept every enterprise that you start cannot be successful. Only, in the West, we're seeing 10% succeed. So unless you have a much larger pipeline of enterprises that start up, then you can't find these many jobs. So while jobs was a key thing that we were driving at, but I think, the way in which the nation is building itself at this point of time, the participation of entrepreneurs in nation building, we thought, probably will increase as we go along, and therefore more number of entrepreneurs are required. So why you might ask me this question: where are these guys trying to do nation building? Where are the entrepreneurs doing nation building? Is that if you go back and Google on this word called entrepreneur, you'll find 3 adjectives will never miss. Entrepreneur is a guy who starts a business. It's a business idea that he has. The second one is that this person, he or she, takes risks, financial risks. And with an objective or a motive which is very simple, is for economic benefits. Business idea, take risks, economic benefits. But personally, I feel that is a lot more than the entrepreneur does in terms of nation building. Take the example, we said jobs. A company like mine, we have about 18,000 jobs that we created over the last 30 years. That's a part of nation building, which I told you how important it was in terms of creating jobs. Or the second one is that I think my 2 young friends talked about my profile, that we did about $6.5 billion of foreign exchange earnings so far. Trust me, 30 years back when I started this company in 1991, many of my young friends here might not be knowing the story. India was exactly the same situation as what Sri Lanka is today. On the brink of a disaster, not in a position to pay for the foreign debt that they had. The then Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao and his Finance Minister Mohan sheepishly were smuggling gold to Bank of London to pay for the debt we had. From that situation, where are we today? We are at $500 billion of surplus foreign exchange. Who got that money? Government policies helped us more than at all. It was the industry which earned that money for this nation. Industry in the sense, even if you look at foreign direct investment or foreign institutional investors, That's all because of the ecosystem that got created. So therefore, we participate in the institution building. Or the third one that I keep talking about is that you look at the social upliftment that we've done. The social causes people have taken as corporate. No denying that this 2% CSR budgets came into existence in the recent past. But even before that, people spent a fairly large amount of their profits. So therefore, entrepreneurship to me is much beyond just making wealth or sharing wealth with others, which is yet another thing, but also participating in the nation building.
So in that context, therefore, how do we choose this title for EngineeredInIndia? What is the inspiration behind that?
Inspiration fairly simple. We are all engineered in India somewhere or the other. Cliche is not intended, but I started this company in 1991. But much earlier than that, I somehow had this great fascination for engineering. In the book, I keep writing out the story when I was about 10, 12 years old. I used to see this huge road rollers, they were called. You don't see them any longer. Primarily, they used to lay the road. So which effectively means how do you compact the mud, the waste, is by rolling a very heavy weight on top of them. So these were called road rollers. Originally, they came actually with steam engines. And thereafter they became diesel engines. They don't, right now technology has changed, so therefore you don't see so many of them. I used to get so fascinated with them. And I used to tell everybody that I'll become a road roller engineer. That was it was. So somehow that engineering was ingrained into my mind fairly young in life. And moreover, more interestingly, I also used to think that I'll become an engineer, road roller, which is moving parts and so on and so forth. So automobiles was fascination for me. And I thought, mechanical engineering is the right profession for me. And interestingly, that particular thought process helped me considerably because when I wanted to start business, I saw an opportunity in engineering. So what we started doing is providing engineering as an outsourcing service for customers around the world. The global Fortune 500 companies wanted these services from India. The first and foremost was cost arbitrage. In addition to that, there was domain expertise, our ability to produce quality consistently. All these put together was happening. So therefore, what did I do is provided this engineering services to global marketplace. And we succeeded in one vertical called aerospace. We went into multiple verticals. And thereafter, we were followed by a number of other players. There are at least today, trust me, 100 engineering services players in this country. At least 200 of them who are called GICs, Global Innovation Centers. They do their engineering work, whether it's Intel or it's a Samsung or a Hyundai and so on and so forth. So today, India has become a destination for engineering as for engineering services. So understandably, we built a brand called EngineeredInIndia. With the brand came the name of the book also as EngineeredInIndia.
Because those people who are involved in this industry know that you are pioneer in that.
Yes.
And I think it's great that you reflected that in the book. So I think because the credit right is due, might not have got unless that has been claimed. So I think that's great. Okay.
Thank you.
So there's another because there are many interesting, fascinating anecdotes the book had, but as I was saying that my assessment of the book is just not about your life story or those anecdotes, but how it has been woven towards actually creating a beautiful model and template in terms of creating entrepreneurship in an economy of this kind. But from your perspective, what do you think is the unique aspects of this book?
Well, it is not necessarily so. It's not a business biography. It's not a biography. It's a business biography. What is very unique about this book is the style in which we could finally deliver it to our readers. It is a very difficult book to write in some sense. Very honestly, I also teach a class on leadership at ISB Hyderabad. We do a minor in entrepreneurship, and I teach a class. So I know the student mindset, student preferences, etc. So we could have written absolutely a textbook on entrepreneurship. That won't fly too far. after written an autobiography of mine, he said that won't fly too far either. So we had to mix between an autobiography and our business building. That's I like to paraphrase it as business biography. That's what we did. And I think so unique about it is it's an in-person account that I give to people. And there is a fairly large amount of anecdotal personal information. And I was glad somebody used this word, somebody fairly senior enough in the industry, used this word saying that, Mohan, you needed courage to write this book. I said, I'm transparent. He said, you made so many things public. So I said, I don't think there was something which is private that I need to pay public. People use some of these stuff. And I just documented together. So therefore, I think, but then what would happen is if you can put together information which is personal, all right, but most of the entrepreneurs will live in them. Look at a story that I have in the book. It's all about hesitation of my wife when I wanted to become an entrepreneur. She was reluctant, understandably so, because she said, what's the social infrastructure that we have? How do I make sure that my life continues as what it was in the past? I'm sure every entrepreneur has the same problem, same challenge. It's not with the wife, with the family, with the parents, with their siblings, all of them. So therefore, relating those stories, or I heard this new one in the last few days from a young man saying that, Mohan, he said, I saw this book being released in October. I read it by end of October. The first thing that I did was, if I have to become very comprehensive in my skills, I have to have a sales job. I tried for a sales job, and he said on 1st of January, I got a sales job. And he is an absolutely hardcore R&D guy. So therefore, you are in a position to transform them, because he says, I learned from your story that a guy, I used to be a software guy till I became a salesman in HCL. So therefore, he says, if you could transform yourself, I could do that too. The big message I have in sharing some of the information with them is that I'm a very ordinary guy. I relate to that story too, that in class 7, my mother was not too sure whether I will even pass class 7 or not. My marks were so poor. And then I read the story about how I made sure that I changed. It's primarily my mother telling me that she threatened me, that she'll send me to the village to go and do farming with my grandfather. And then she also told me, she brought this other thing which she never erased from her mind. She said, your sister comes first in class. What's wrong with you? This is like a girl coming first in class. A boy cannot come first in class. I said, no, this is... And then it slowly, wisdom started dawning on me, saying that, look, yes, if she can come first in class, why not me? I thought, she worked much harder than I did. She believed in saying that I will become a doctor. So I told her one day that I'll also become an engineer. Because my mother would say, there are two professions in life, doctor or engineer. She's already taken the doctor's position. So therefore, I think what I'm relating to this story, and then what happened several years thereafter, I was actually a gold medalist at the undergrad level. I went on to do my post-graduation, several more things that I had. So what did I do in the whole process is this wisdom dawned on me that to pursue excellence, it doesn't cost anything. So, but then that belief in you saying that you can also excel, you try, it doesn't cost you at all, was the one which translated my life. And that's what I made sure that I communicated with people. An ordinary guy delivered extraordinary results. You're much better than me. Everyone in this room, I promise you, you're better than me in terms of your IQ, in terms of your abilities. If you have that belief in yourself, you could deliver a better company than Sign. That's the intent with which I wrote this.
And in the process that, as you said, though you made it very matter of fact that I have basically opened up new personal accounts, but it's not about information. It is about the emotion written behind it. The book actually brings those things in the conversation.
Thank you.
So in a way, what I'm saying that therefore many of the hard things that you have mentioned actually become much more, I'll say, palpable and understandable, because those emotions are also mention it in that. And in that context, I will particularly mention about, because there are so many fascinating stories and aspects that are there, but which actually accounts for your preparation as an entrepreneur. Because I think a significant part of the book is about how do you systematically prepare yourself. Because your idea of becoming an entrepreneur was formed very early in your life, but you work towards it for
absolutely. As much as you said, it was early in life time, but the probability of becoming an entrepreneur was also so low.
Yes.
0.001%. Coming from a middle class family, very conservative family, 4 siblings, and no history of business at all in the family. And to take these risks and come out of it was certainly a big change that I had to bring about in myself. That somehow I had to communicate to people saying that you don't have to have the business background. Because if you look at Indian history too, entrepreneurship, if you look at it more closely, post-independent era, the entrepreneurship was all centered around Birlas and Tatas. If a new company, a new enterprise has to be started in India, it will start as in Birlas. Only exception is the Ambanis who came in probably in the late 70s or early 80s. That was the exception. But if you look at post-liberalization, that's post-1990, you saw lots of technology companies coming by. That gave an opportunity for truly people who had the technology bent of mind to build enterprises. Mr. Narayan Murthy for that matter, or Shiv Nadar for that matter, or Rajiv Pawar, many of them in technology. There's no denying at all. There were also pharma companies that came by, biotechnologies came in thereafter, much smaller in terms of proportion. But what we see after 2010 is people have nothing to do with business. They had this brightest idea, they found a solution which is unique and built a business thereafter. The Snapdeals or the Olas of the world, they're all the new breed of entrepreneurship. So therefore, I think what is in store for our young crowd here is tremendous amount of opportunity. An opportunity which is actually being driven by technology. That's another thing that I think is, the tailwind is so strong for people like you. It's never been experienced by people like us in the past. Technology is galloping at this point of time, providing new opportunities because it's become so disruptive. It creates more opportunities for newer people to enter the space. So to that extent, I guess, with low probability I made it, with high probability you can make it better.
So I will frame it a little different. See, if there's a low probability perhaps of becoming a successful entrepreneur, but there was no probability was as high to become an entrepreneur anyway. But what was I getting at that you systematically prepare yourself, every assignment that you've taken. So in that context, now what you just mentioned, that today there are many people who are coming into entrepreneurship without any preparation at all. So message that I'd like to basically share that if you are in today's context, because given an opportunity to start, will you still follow the methods that you followed in terms of preparing yourself to increase the probability of success? Or you will just plunge in because the ecosystem is much more.
My answer is I would plunge in unhesitantly. That's the answer I have. I had to go through that particular process because of a number of reasons. One is we talked about experience. Experience was very important because primarily the companies that came in those days were brick and mortar companies. So you had to have a lot more experience in terms of managing companies with brick and mortar with large sums of investment. Whereas today it is far different. It's technology-centric companies which are coming. The second point I'd like to make is, as opposed to the past, where you were the only lone thinker of being an entrepreneur, you have a lot more people who want to become entrepreneurs too. For instance, you're a technology guy coming from an IIT. You don't have business expertise. You don't have the business knowledge. You could always find a co-founder in ISB. So forming teams together is becoming much easier in the current generation. And also to connect together, to that matter. Social media was not there 40 years, 50 years back. I never had so many friends, so many followers at this point of time, whose story I hear or my story they hear on a continual basis. And the other thing which is also important was that financing or funding is important too. A, I did not have money with me. B, therefore I had to wait till even creating my own seed capital for myself. But more importantly, in addition to seed capital, if there was a venture capital money that was to come by, there were very, very few options that were available to us. I mentioned it in my book too, is that the funding that I got, I had 20 lakhs of my money when I started this company in 1991. That was my equity. And two friends of mine gave me $10,000 checks. So people might mistake, was it 8 lakhs because it's 82 rupees? No, dollar at that point in time was 25 rupees. So therefore it was 2.5 lakhs each. So that made me an equity of 25 lakhs. I borrowed 97 lakhs on top of it from something called the IDBI Venture Capital. It's called IDBI VC, it was good old days. So I've got this final agreement with IDBI VC, came and showed it to a couple of my friends saying that I managed to get this, I leveraged my cash 4 times and these are the terms I got. They said, Mohan, you're a crazy guy. Why did you sign this agreement? Because they said this is not venture capital. This is vulture capital. You can't believe this. You can also then think about how stupid I was. 21% on the 97 lakhs of money that I borrowed, 21% per annum. 6% of my revenue was royalty to IDBI. They said that's the risk that they had. There was something called a flooring for royalty. That is, I think I need to pay 30 lakhs for them within 4 years. If I didn't pay the 30 lakhs, whatever is the gap between them, that gets converted as equity into my company. And there is nothing called ceiling. 7 years, they will continue to get royalty on me. And I'm not as stupid as that. I went back after a year and told them now, look, I got the idea. Things are rolling. And people are saying, you are sucking my blood. So therefore, we need to renegotiate this stuff. Went ahead and did renegotiation, and finally, Mr. Subramanian, the general manager, said, take this or leave it. So I told him that, look, unfortunate thing is that we're 12th floor. The door is locked. There are no windows for this room. I want to jump out of the window right now. That's the situation you put me into. So he said, are you very seriously saying this? I said, that's what it is. You're putting personal desperation. Trust me, I'll deliver what you want as your money. So they renegotiated the stuff. They converted the 97 lakhs, they said 15 lakhs of our money gets converted into equity. And the rest of it will remain debt at 18% all right. Royalty was removed. And we worked ourselves through. But think about the situation today for all of you compared to what it was for me. Today, money is chasing you. If you have a good idea, you have enough money. People come and tell me, no, sir, we're not finding money, etc. I keep telling them that no, money will come to you if you have a good idea. Don't tell me that you don't have money. Tell me that you have a bad idea. That's what it is. You go back and relook at what you are doing, then people will come and follow you. So therefore, the situation is far different. So therefore, if you ask me this question, Salvita, will you start one now if I were living in the state? Honestly, the answer is yes and a yes and a yes.
Absolutely. So you give a very loud and clear message that more and people should actually venture into it. But when we interact with the experts or the students or the people who have just graduated a few years, there's something that binds them not to take this plunge, in spite of everything going in favor, is that there is a golden handcuff that they are having. They will have a good job, steady salary, EMIs to pay, and many other things that comes with a good job. Whereas in your book, you give a very easy account about those levels you also face.
Yes.
And you face the situation where there is a growing family and responsibility. So how, if you just give a glimpse of what is there in the book in terms of how did you overcome those emotional challenges and the internal barriers to those responsibilities that you have?
The one is you have to have a passion in life to say, you want to be an entrepreneur. You want to be a successful entrepreneur. You build that passion in you, that fire in your belly is something which cannot be external. It has to be within you. But I think you talk about it as golden handcuffs, fat salaries and so on and so forth. But I think we need some more stories of what, there are stories, they're not written, they should be documented. Tell me one guy what is the, I disclose, this is public information, so I can disclose it more. What was my money that I put into this company? 20 lakhs a month. What is it valued at this point of time? The market's closed today, we're at 10,000 crores. What handcuffs would have given me this amount of money? If you go by a sheer experience saying that it's just money makes the difference. Or then you go ahead and say amount of satisfaction you get from other things as such. Employment generation, nation building, participate, get the recognition. All that would happen when you become entrepreneurs. So therefore, I think the messaging that I have for our young friends today is that I think don't get enamored with what is there today in the short term. Think about long term. Think about a big dream of yours. What do you want to become? You can build it. It may not be reality today, the dream is. But you can go ahead and do it brick by brick. That's what I did. I started off very small. But what I did, I said, look, I didn't get experience. I got an operational experience. I had then a software experience. Then I became a sales guy. I became a CEO of a company before I said, I'll become an entrepreneur today. So plan that way. If you think that I have A, B, C, D as hindrances, which we don't in the current environment. If you think that I'm not very good in sales, you go and get a good sales guy as your co-founder. If you think that you need help in finance, you can get a guy there too. Or if you're a good business guy, but you don't have technology, you have somewhat of an idea, get a good technologist for your neighboring compound with this little IT. So I think the opportunities are plenty. The question is, you have to have the passion in mind which says, I want to be distinctly different from others. I ask this question all the time, which is one of the misses in the book. We'll make it at some point of time. They moved it up and down and finally fell apart. Is that you got to ask this question: what is your purpose of life? Why are you here in life? And I don't know whether some of you must have read this poem called The Dash. The author is Linda Ellis. Go and Google, you'll find it. What does Dash tell you is basically that after we disappear from this world, what's left behind is a tombstone. Tombstone has the name of a person, the date you arrive, the date you disappear, and a dash in between. Look at the tombstone one more time seriously. Nothing on the tombstone is under your control. Your name is not your control. Date of birth is not your control. Date of disappearance is not control. What is under your control is the dash. The dash is what you contributed to this world. If you start asking that question for yourself, I'm not saying just become an entrepreneur sincerely. You got to contribute to this world. Whether you become a great, outstanding professor like Professor Madan here, or Professor Salvata, or noble profession they are teaching, or you want to become a politician for that matter, who can contribute back to the society. You want to become a doctor, you want to become a scientist, but I think the key thing that I drive, I read in the book too, is you need to understand what's your purpose of life is.
Fantastic. So I'll have just before opening up to the audience for the question, I have one last question for you, because you have been mentioning that throughout the book in different anecdotes, but also spent a significant amount in one chapter about the role of the family, and particularly your wife, Sucharita, in terms of making those tough choices. Like, so if you just share a bit about that how the role of the family in building of a successful entrepreneur.
It's very important, Savita. Thank you very much. I'm sure Suchi will be delighted that there was a question about her today. My marriage is an arranged marriage. Not very common today. It used to be fairly common in the good old days, but it was much more staged arrangement than that. I never said yes to getting married to Suchi. My mother made this decision. I was still in IIT Kanpur. She wrote me a letter. Those days they were not even telephones or telegrams. A long letter saying that, look, I found this girl, you also know her. I think, she comes from a very similar family background like ours. My father-in-law was a medical doctor. My mother-in-law and my mother were very thick friends. Between them, both of them decided their 2 children will get married. So I gave a debrief to it. I said, yeah, my mother has got tremendous tremendous amount of faith and trust in her. She has the wisdom. I said she should have taken the right decision for me. I went ahead to do that. I was very lucky to be where I am. But understandably, with the social background that Suchi has, that's how she is known as, Suchi has, she was also very reluctant, saying that, I had the role of being the CEO of a company. We had a chauffeur-driven car, we had a nice home we built by that time. All the nice things were there. So she said, why do you check this out? This is like the golden handcuffs you talked about, sort of thing. But then I told her all about what potentially life is going to be, what my ambition in life is. And she said the biggest thing was that, look, do you make sure that how do I run the home? I said, look, we'll do one thing. We had one other small property, I had some excess money with me, put together, I'll buy a commercial property for you. And the rental income that comes is good enough for you to run the home. I documented this. This is an absolute one-to-one conversation between her and me. And what was the outcome of it? She said yes to it. So I said, I promise you that I will not touch this money. Well, if your children grow, inflation becomes higher, we'll think about next step. That's another 10 years from now. By which time we'll have decided either way, I become an entrepreneur or I'll jump back into a job again. And she finally said yes to it. But she said wholeheartedly yes. But not even momentarily she brings thereafter. One, she was very reluctant to start with. I think that's the support system that you need. But to get the support system, you have to do your groundwork to convince them. I put a rough shot at her and saying that don't worry about it, I'll do what I like. I would not have had the same commitment from her. But the commitment came because, our ability to convince them.
Wonderful. So I will now open it up for the audience to ask a few questions.
To succeed, then you become automatically back to you, CSR or otherwise.
So just one last question I can ask. This is Nitisha here.
Okay, please.
Hello sir, this is Nitisha from ISB. I'm pursuing my PG report here. First of all, thank you for being with us today. So I just want to request one thing that we have spoken about finance and many other things. But one request is like, suppose I start a firm today. What is your advice with respect to staffing? Because only CEO or CFO, the top people being passionate, wouldn't help for that firm. But what is one staffing advice for at least for the first 3 years you would suggest for the budding entrepreneur so that the firm will take off?
Sure. I think there are several things one has to do with just not the CEO, CFO's roles that are there. The first is that your ability to share your dream with others. You sell your story to others. Unless they're aligned to your story, unless they buy your story, they will never come and join you. That I think is very clear. So therefore, unless you're very passionate about it, you have a unique story, a unique solution associated with it, they will not come and join you. The second thing which I strongly believe, and we did this even in the last few days for a new company that we're starting off, is that you create wealth, you have to share wealth with the wealth creators. That I think is something which is very, very fundamental. In science, or there's no there's nothing called a stock option plan that was prescribed by the government. We voluntarily went ahead and did it. And it's not just how much money people made, but the stories that we keep hearing about itself makes it extremely gratifying. Sir, I send my child abroad because I'm working in science. Sir, you have to come to Brokerage this week because I built this house after I sold the stock in science because that's the money that I made out of this. So these are very gratifying stories which then motivate the rest of the people. So it's not the titles which are important to me. Our ability to convince people saying that you are a part of my team, a part of this story, part of this dream, that's what I think makes it.
Yes, so I think, in fact, I urge all of you to read the book. Many of those questions are actually answered in a much more detailed manner in the book. Okay? So, and then we can, because there are so many questions I'm sure all of you have, for the people in the honor of the time, I think we could call it off. Over to you.
Thank you so much for this fast-paced question and answer round. Now I request Professor Ray to hand over the memento to Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy.
This is not needed.
It's just a book. I don't think it's because I know you love books. So
Yes. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Centre, I would like to thank you for making this event successful. We wholeheartedly thank Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy for taking out this valuable time and sharing the thoughts behind his book. His journey is truly inspirational and the Bible for all budding entrepreneurs. We would like to thank Professor Ray for moderating the session and facilitating the insightful environment. Special thanks to Professor and Dean Madan for taking time out for this event. Thank you to all the dignitaries, participants for gracing the occasion. Finally, I would like to thank Team Sarovar, IT, AV, Housekeeping, Markham, External Affairs, Office of Dr. Reddy for facilitating this event. With sincere gratitude, we would like to take your leave. Thank you so much.
Thank you.